Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
Frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That we'll just put it at that.
Yeah.
It's been a frustrating week.
It's been an interesting one, to say the least.
I love my kids, but my patience is thin, and this is a case where we've just had too much of a good thing, which is, time with kids. So.
You must be talking about the almost entire month that we're fixing to have off here between the holidays and everything, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're around. They're definitely around. I thought it was kind of interesting. They don't cancel school very often.
No, they don't.
And then for the type of weather that we had, we don't get that in Kansas very often.
No, we don't.
And so in the end, I think it was plausible. I think it was a good idea why they did it. I mean, it's still kind of, it's only a couple days later and we're still dealing with a little bit of slippy sliding.
Oh yeah. Straight up, where I grew up, we got storms like this. It felt like every other week, right?
Yeah.
But because we got them so often, we put a lot of resources in dealing with those things after they showed up. Yeah. And, the exception would have been the winter of 79 when, we got storms like this, like every day for 2 weeks, and we had to shut our whole worlds down. And, but we don't expect this here. This is not normal for us. And so it's going to take a couple of days. And I remember making a comment yesterday, actually, as I was walking through the parking lot over at the on my way to the detention center. I stepped forward and I looked down and I went, this is the way things are looking right now. I remember growing up that in places like Iowa City, it could take up to a week for this to really thaw. And part of that was that
it just stayed cold all the time.
They ended up in the same kind of weather cycle that we have right now, which is, we got slobber knockered, and it's not just Newton. The whole state got hammered.
Yeah, I remember seeing just closings. Road closures from Newton West.
I have not talked to anybody who can remember ever a time where US 50 was closed from Newton to the Colorado line.
Yeah.
I've talked to some real old timers over the past few days. Nobody can remember that has ever happened. And so this was a big one, right? So, that there's a healthy dose of perspective there. So we get hit with that, and now we're fixing for some really cold temps and maybe even some more snow and all that. So it's going to take some time to recover. It really truly is.
Well, and sending a shout out to the city and all those that endeavored to keep our roads clean, all law enforcement, everybody that was there, because really that kind of weather is debilitating.
Yep.
And man, I was sitting there watching it come in like everybody else, and for most people from the confinements of their home. And I just thought, wow, this would be a very bad time to be trying to travel across Kansas and get stuck out in wherever. Because I've been out there on that I-70 corridor out in western Kansas, and there's only so many hotels, and there's a ton of people that travel that. I'll tell you that right now. But have you seen? Okay, so just here for everybody, this coming week, starting with Friday the 12th, is supposed to be 16 degrees. Saturday's 11 degrees. Sunday's 0, Monday is 5, Tuesday is 17 degrees, and Wednesday's 25. And then there's just snow and everything else mixed in there.
Correct. The last time we had anything that remotely even came close to this was a couple of years ago, where we had, it was about 2 weeks of really brutal temps. And if you would recall, we're still paying for that because some natural gas wells froze up down in Texas. And then the prices spiked. And we're talking from something like $2 a unit to $600 a unit. And, Heston and Halstead just got hammered with that. KG&E didn't get hammered quite as bad, but they did take it a little bit. And so we're all still paying for that.
Yeah.
And that's the last time we had anything remotely close to this. And I don't think right here in Newton, if my memory serves, we didn't have we had a number of really cold days, but we didn't have like zero.
Yeah, some other people had
every
some little
single
bit
day.
worse other places.
And it was the wind that made it even bitter. And those are the highs that you're reading.
Yeah. That's not including a wind chill of any kind.
That's not including wind chills.
So we're literally going to go into sub-zero.
And we're not talking about the lows, the overnight lows.
Yeah, -8.
Yeah. What,
I mean, we're
-8,
talking,
is that Saturday night, -8?
Yeah, that's crazy. Yes, it is.
So what's crazy is that the -8 is listed for Saturday night. That's the real temperature, right?
Yeah. Saturday, -6. Sunday, -8. Monday, -8.
Okay. So Saturday night is supposed to be -8 degrees with no wind. Who knows what it's going to be with the wind? Here's the crazy one. We've got somewhere around 3,600 Boy Scouts that are pre-registered for Trappers Rendezvous. Don't know how many of them are going to brave that, but Trappers Rendezvous will happen. And there will be folks camping out at West Park in -6, 7 degrees. They will be there. They don't... I called one of the organizers and honestly, I mean, I could play the recording for you, but this is how that went down. Dude, I've got a question for you. I already know the answer, but I absolutely have to ask it. And he just popped with, Chad, yes. So you guys is there anything that would ever convince you to cancel Trappers? No.
Because really, that's what it's about.
I'm just
kinda,
dude, I got to have some quotes here.
Yes. So, will you ever, or have you ever, or should you ever cancel? No.
They will not. They're going to figure out how to do this. And, to their credit, would have been about 6 weeks ago or so is when the Trappers Herald comes out. And it's about a 5-page PDF full of information about trappers and what activities there's going to be. There is a whole page about how to try and stay warm no matter how cold it gets, and what you should be, how you handle your tent and not to sleep on a cot because a cot lets the wind underneath you. And I mean, all that stuff is in there. I went ahead and wrote a story based on all of those tips because many of those tips, now granted, you have to adapt some of them, but many of those tips stand for anybody who is such a Chiefs fan that they absolutely positively think they have to drive to Kansas City on Saturday for that playoff game. And I know they're out there. I mean, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt they're out there. I had a conversation with one of those folks just this week, and I was like, dude, make sure you got cardboard to put underneath your feet. Have a barrier between you and the ground. Wear boots. Don't wear tennis shoes. Preferably something that's watertight, because once your feet get wet and get cold, you will be miserable.
And just being prepared, having those extra things.
No,
and see, we just slide by that.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people today just kind of pass by that because of our technology and all of this whatnot. But there's also a situation that exists where, the law enforcement will try like hell to get to you. But if you're in a situation where you're already in a situation, they might not physically be able to get to you in a matter of time where you might losing some things.
Yes.
I'm not going to say it's the case, but
if
cold weather is
if your fingers start to go numb, that's a big sign right there. And
Heck, my feet are numb right now, Chad.
Well, I know, right?
But everywhere you go.
What are you wearing on your feet, Lance? Because I got the Ducks on, and I've had them on for the last 3 days.
You're wearing Crocs? Is that what you just said?
No. I got the Ducks. I got the duck boots. Okay. Waterproof boots and with warmers in them and the whole 9 yards, because you got to keep your feet dry. You got to keep your feet warm. The rest of your body will suffer greatly. Okay, it's why I hate running in the winter. When I'm training, I can't stand winter training if there's snow on the ground, because inevitably my feet will get cold and they will get wet, and I will be miserable for the rest of the day. But know your signs of hypothermia. That would be numbness in your digits and extremities. That's a big one. If you can't stop shivering, you're going to be shivering. But if you're sitting there and you're cold and you're like, wait, I'm cold, you can tell yourself to stop. And if you can't stop, Get your butt inside. You're in the early stages of hypothermia.
Yeah. And this is interesting too, because I was reading a little bit about that. A lot of people think like it's this drastic onset of condition. But truthfully, let's say you run outside real quick to start the car and you don't have a coat on and you don't, you just got out the shower or whatever the case may be. There's a very, very good chance, honestly, that type of drop in temperature on your body, you can't catch up real quick.
No, if you get chilled, it can be hard to warm up, and that's a warning sign. So next time, wear a coat. I mean, seriously, dress in layers, all that stuff. I mean, and all that. I'm printing all of that stuff on Saturday, because of trappers. I'm printing it all, and I'm printing pretty much all the tips that they gave out, and pay attention. I mean, seriously. And don't think it's not going to happen to you. In a second, you can be slid off the edge of the interstate.
Yeah.
And if that happens, you need to know what to be looking for. And straight up, I mean, again, I grew up in this crap, okay? If you slide off on the interstate, don't get out of your car.
And go walking.
Yeah. If you slide off on, K15, Broadway, whatever you want to call it, that's headed to Sedgwick or Wichita. I don't care where you slide off. Don't get out of your car. Okay? Make sure that you've got your cell phone is charged before you leave. I mean, I sound alarmist, but dead serious. Make sure your cell phone is charged before you leave. Make sure that you have it on your person. Don't throw it on the seat. Because you throw it on the seat or throw it on the dashboard or whatever it else, that slide off, if it turns into a rollover, you'll have no idea where that thing is at.
Yeah.
So have it on your person, preferably, in a pocket so that you know where it's at. You slide off, call the sheriff. Chad and his crew will happily come get you.
Do the best they can.
Okay.
Do the best they can.
If it's really bad out and there's a ton of slide offs, it might be a little bit before they can get there. The only reason you should leave your car, and by the way, it needs to stay running. The only reason you should leave your car is to go check the tailpipe and make sure that the exhaust is able to actually get out of your car.
Yeah.
That's it. And just stay in there until somebody can come get you. We are dealing, when you start talking about -7, -8, those are serious temperatures.
That's death temperatures.
And in Kansas, the wind is always blowing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not really talking about -7 degrees. We're really talking about 20 below zero.
-20. Hey, and people, your pets,
bring them inside, please.
If they happen to be outside, make sure they've got shelter and warmth.
Well,
the least that you can do.
I once had a landlord. I had inquired of him, about getting a dog. And he looked at me and he said, that will require a deposit. You will bring your dog inside. I'm like, no, I'm going to get an outdoor dog. My landlord, God bless him, looked right at me and in all seriousness said, if you're getting a dog, you're talking about getting a member of the family, and a family comes inside. Not just when it's cold. Okay. All right. So folks, if you got a pet this weekend, please bring them inside.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the place for them. And honestly, it's why I fight my family nonstop about getting a pet. Because at this stage, with where we're at, with the age of my kids and everything else, I don't want another being in my house.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. One more spirit.
Yeah.
One more spirit.
Can't do it. We're full right now.
Yeah.
So
with that, okay. So I got something, Chad.
Sure.
Which means we talked about the weather and everything, which is really incredible. I mean, it really is an incredible story. Something that seems to be the story that just keeps coming up, and I'm the water man, right? Everybody, we call me the water man. I wish I tried to brand myself as the utility man, because that would be a more accurate title, given what stuff that I have covered and study that I've done that's sadly just there for every single person who wants to garner and go after the same information that I did and quite potentially come to the same conclusion. But I saw, and I stayed out of this one, Chad. But the
well,
city
now you're going to put yourself in it. Right?
Yeah. Well, on social media. I mean, okay. So here I am scrolling social medias, and I see, Newton city government breaks down kind of what the increases on the utility bill are going to be going forward. And I remember thinking, I remember this, and going over this and writing about this and the whole thing. And I'm thinking, now, the rubber's meeting the road. And I just remember looking right here at it and thinking, man, it's almost not even as bad as what I thought it was before. I mean, when we're really talking about literally 20 cents, 40 cents, 60 cents, $1 of an increase on your utility bill overall. And of course, there was people that were sharing it and inflamed and angry, and of course they're raising it again. And I just read this and thought, man, there's so much confusion amongst a lot of these people. They think that it's either being raised again. They weren't watching before when they had already made this decision. I guess they're not out of the loop. I don't really understand like how this simple notification of something that already had been decided in the past, discussions made, decisions made, all this, whatnot. And now people are just catching up to it. And by God, now I'm just going to tell you, I just got to say it, people, you're raising my water bill by 40 cents.
Well,
we need to go. It's time to pack up. It's time to pack up the horses. It's time to pack up the carriage, and it's time to get out of Dodge. Because I tell you what, 40 cents is going to break me. I mean,
well, let's first start.
Where's the anger?
Let's talk a little bit about.
A package of gum.
Can we talk a little bit about behavioral patterns that I've observed?
Well, yes.
Is that all right?
Yes.
So here's a behavioral pattern that I have observed, and I'm not that dude that toots his own horn all the time, but I've been doing this a long time. And as long as I've been doing this, I get the same phone call every January. They're raising my water rates. Why didn't you report on that? My answer is always the same. We reported on it in June and July when they were going through the budget. This year, my answer is I reported on it in March and June when they were going through their budget process. I reported on it in great detail. I don't know where you've been. I'm not trying to be accusatory, but I did report it.
And you did a good job, by the way.
So here we are. This is January again, and everybody's coming unglued because the city is letting you know, by the way, this month you can expect to see this.
Which, if they never said anything, I wonder how many people would know that their water bill went up by
if it really is
41 cents.
If it really is going to only increase my bill by 40 cents, I'm not going to notice that at all. Okay.
And granted, it will be a little bit more based upon usage. But this is your base rate. So 40 cents at a base rate.
Those are base rates.
So okay.
So somebody like me who cannot seem to get his family to understand that we've got to pay based on usage. And so it might be a good idea to not take a 45-minute shower. I can't get folks in my family to get this. And I'm not pointing at any one person in my family. I'm pointing at everybody not named Chad that's in my house.
Yeah.
Okay. So can't get them to understand that I'm going to see more than that as an increase.
Yeah. We're okay. Both
and very, very likely I will notice it.
Yes.
And I will.
It'll be a couple dollars.
So, that's the deal, right? There are people that are going to see an increase that is more than less than $1. I mean, we will.
Yeah.
And some of us will notice.
But your lowest...
But at the end of the day, my point is this. This is a decision that was made months and months and months ago. This was a decision that our city commission absolutely agonized over and debated and fought over. And it was not easy.
Public work session.
And they did everything they possibly could do to try and make this as small as possible. And I'm going to also give you a universal truth. Folks, hear me now, and I know it's not going to make you feel any better. Really, it's not. But understand, while I've been doing this for a really long time, and part of what I do is report on the water rates, I've also been doing it in places that are not named Newton, Kansas. Okay? I've been doing it just because of the luck of the draw. I was doing it in all of Butler County. I was doing it in McPherson County. I've done it in Hillsborough. I've done it in Iowa. Universal truth is every single one of those communities, people thought their water rates were too high. Every one of them. Here's another one. Very few of those places is your water bill, as we refer to it in Newton, more than just the water.
Yeah.
And I cannot stand reference to the water bill.
Because it's not the water bill, it's the utility bill.
It is a utility bill. We have 3 major services that are required and needed services for your home.
Yeah.
That are all on the same bill.
Well, it's this bad, Chad. Now, I'm stopping here. It's this bad. Somebody goes out on social media or tells their friend, I pay $150 in my water bill. And then somebody comes back and says, well, that's crazy because I live here and I only pay $45 in my water bill. That's insane.
Well, and
then
you
you realize, oh, wait, it's not just the water bill. How much do you pay in your trash? And by the way, if you just take the water portion of it, we pay less than that person that's saying that ours is astronomical.
And the other part of that is, do not forget that this is usage-based. There is absolutely, every time you talk about this, you have to remember, this is usage-based. So for me to complain that last month it was $285, and if I say that was my water bill, and I say that to one of my Sunday school folks who lives up in Heston, and they look at me and be like, dude, that's ridiculous. My water bill was only, and it's less than $100.
Yeah.
Okay. The dude living up in Heston is just him and his wife, no kids. They're not using nearly as much water as I am.
Yeah.
The dude that's living up in Heston doesn't have some of those other services on that bill. You can even go to, the guy in my class that's in North Newton. You know what's not on his city bill? Trash.
And see, I'll say this. My conclusion after all of my research when it came to our utility bill was that this, and you have to have a title here or whatever, okay? But here's how you take it away. Newton utilities are not equitable. They're equal. They are straight across the board equal. Just to compound what you're saying. I'm paying the same amount as everybody else. We're all paying the same amount. It's just if you're going to consume more, then you're going to pay more.
Correct.
So it's not like, oh, well, you're a high consumer, so let's give you a break. Or you're a low consumer, so let's give you a break. There's a standard set, and then from there, we all consume or not consume, and then have the bill to go with it, correct?
Right. And, I'm gonna just say like 2 more sentences and then I'm shutting up.
Yep, on the water thing, the utility bill.
But again, thank you for that setup, because I just am so fed up with it's the water bill. No, it's not. It is not a water bill. Your water, which you cannot live without, it's your water. It's your sewer. Okay, if you want all that crap to stay in your basement, I guess you cannot pay that. And it's your trash. And if you want the freedom to contract with a different trash company, number one, that's not gonna happen. And there's some really good reasons for that to not happen. And number 2, you'll be going to talk to a private company, and that private company is going to charge whatever they want to charge, and their allegiance is not to you, and it is not to me. It is to their ownership.
And if you open it up for more than one now, and there's been another one, well, let's just open it up for bidding to where these people are contracted to be able to work in it. Well, then you're going to have 3 different trash trucks in a week driving down one street. Instead of now,
And dude,
it's they have a
number one, I got kids. I don't want 3 trash trucks on my street. Number 2, I don't want the wear and tear on that street that I'm paying special assessments for from extra trucks.
Yeah.
The fewer trucks that go down my street, the better. Yeah. Okay? So I'm going to give a shout out right here to Suzanne Loomis, because she's been saying that to this city commission, to the city commission, for years. And you know, anybody and everybody who works in City Hall is a polarizing figure. There's people who love them and there's people who hate them.
Yeah.
And that's the deal. So for those people who are the sort of detractors for Suzanne Loomis, please get behind her on this one.
I like Suzanne.
You flat out do not want you do not want extra truck traffic on your street,
yeah.
Which, by the way, you are paying special assessment taxes for. You don't want extra traffic there. You want that thing to last as long as it can. And extra truck traffic ain't gonna do it. It's gonna tear it up. And we all know it.
When you even had something that you had mentioned when we were cussing and discussing here earlier about the unseen stuff that happens with our utility department, with our people that are employed for our, we have a certain amount of employees, right? And part of those employees are our trash operators for the trucks, right? You got to have a CDL do that. Not anybody can just drive a truck around, do what they're doing, and they do
Correct.
it, right? But that also gives them the ability to do what else, Chad?
Oh, well, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. So imagine after this snowstorm comes through, and even before, because they start work before the storm. Okay? You have to get the brine truck out. You have to get your streets and roads treated. The best example I can give you of that is what Harvey County does. I mean, they're on the road 12, 14 hours before as any storm's hitting, and they're putting on their key routes, they're putting down brine, otherwise, known to us as salt.
Yeah.
To try and help that stuff melt the moment it hits. I mean, that's what they're doing. And that's the prep. And then the storm hits, and then you got to get going.
Yeah.
And it's quite honestly the level of how much you can do is going to be determined by how quick you can get started. Okay? So, hey, I spent yesterday, which was really stupid, quite honestly. I spent yesterday doing a lot of DoorDash work, and I walked through a lot of places where driveways had not been shoveled at all. And I walked through places where they went and shoveled it,
and they just laid it back on top.
late in the evening, the previous day. And yes, there was more that came, but I'm going to tell you, those folks that did shovel the night before, I appreciate you, because that is the only way to make this thing happen, right? Yeah. And in our home's case, it was my wife who got home from doing some cleaning work, and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna shovel some. I just don't feel like." Well, the next day there's still snow out there. Yeah. My son says you can't tell the difference, but I can.
Yeah, there's about
and then when you go in, and then you're going in and you're shoveling it again, and you can make the statement, "I don't want to shovel twice." Well, let me tell you, that second time is a heck of a lot easier if the first time happened.
You'd rather shovel four times.
All that to say that it really depends on how fast you get on your streets, as to what you're going to have when everything is over. And in order for that to occur, we have to have people, because you cannot have a guy drive for 20 hours, or girl, doesn't matter. You cannot have a CDL driver behind the wheel for 20 hours. That means you need, if you want to have somebody driving for 20 hours, you got to have multiple drivers. Yeah. And that means you have to have multiple crews. So if we as a city were to say, you know what, we're going to limit this to our street department, that's who's going to clean our streets. Oh, good luck. And our city didn't do that. Our public works department does not do that. Thank God they do not. The reason that those guys all look like rock stars right now is because they pulled sanitation guys and said, hey, you're going to have a few extra hours.
Yeah.
We need you to drive. We need you to get behind a plow. They pulled from everywhere. Okay. There were folks on duty at the water department all night. They pulled from everywhere. We do something like privatize our trash service to, quote, save money, which we won't do. Well, we will not save a dime. The city might save something, but us, we won't save anything.
And that really, snow removal, although can be privatized for a smaller business. I mean, there's no privatization for snow removal. I mean,
not of streets, not of public streets.
No.
Okay.
City's job.
And yes. You're not going to privatize the clearing of public streets.
Yeah.
Now, they're not going to do any of those parking lots. And I'm going to tell you, I know which parking lots suck. I mean, I really do, because I was in a lot of them yesterday. And I know which ones absolutely suck and which ones that I am going to refuse to go back to today. I mean, just not doing it.
Like they just didn't do anything.
Yeah. And you know, there was a time period there, roughly about 2:00 in the afternoon, where everything was slushy and wet. Okay. Even in the places that sucked, it was just slushy and wet. No big deal. Right now, they're all blocks of ice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, most people don't really consider the refreeze. No matter what, like today is a wonderful day. It's going to be a nice balmy 38 degrees, which is a huge difference from the last few hours that we've had to experience.
And we will get some melting today.
We'll get melting.
But we're going to get refreeze again.
Yes. Yeah.
So but you know, all of that is, the deal is, if we privatize our trash service, then those sanitation guys aren't there. They're not on the rolls. We don't have them. And so when this hits, who's going to clear our streets? It's going to be the street department. Yeah. And they might be able to pull somebody, if they have a CDL, out of parks. You know, it's going to be literally, do you have a CDL? Great. Get driving. Where are we going to pull them from? Well, we kind of need those sanitation guys, folks. Yeah. I mean, we really do, because they do more than just drive a trash truck.
And they do a good job. Because I'm gonna say, you know, it goes all the way back to when my son, who's 16 years old now, I'll get a little heartfelt story here, okay? Just really liked to see the trash truck. I mean, he was 2, probably, maybe a little bit older. Of course, we're stuck to the window watching this whole thing happen. He kind of developed and figured out, okay, this is going to work. So then he wanted to see it, you know, and literally, I mean, on a couple different occasions, even maybe for a couple weeks there, we would go out and wave at the trash truck guy, and he would wave, and you know, it was like, not saying that wouldn't take place, but you know, they kind of know their role. You know, the people that are there that are serving the city and working in their capacity get nothing but high fives from me. I know a lot of them personally. They do a wonderful job, and it's just nice. It's nice to know that they're not just representing their company, they're representing their community.
Yeah. So that's why. And so we need those folks, and it's also why you just cannot continue this reference to the water bill, because it's more than that, and it's supporting more than that. Now, we can debate whether or not those big cash transfers should be happening out of water and sewer into the general fund, and that is something that this commission did debate.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, in this last budget go-round, they kind of looked at it and they said, you know, if we get rid of these transfers, yes, we can lower a bunch of rates, maybe. Because you always have to have a plan for maintenance too. And we can maybe lower some rates, but that's going to put a pretty sizable hole in our general fund right now, which is going to mean a bigger mill levy increase. So which do you want?
Well, I mean, if people really wanted to be mad, they should probably just be mad at all the nonprofits that don't pay property taxes in the community. Now, I didn't say that, and I don't believe that. I think that what we're doing right now is absolutely the correct thing to do. In fact, if you research it, we are not the only city government, municipality, that takes money out of a water fund or a general fund and applies it to other areas that need the help. And we're kind of in a situation. I tell you what, I when I did my MPA at Wichita State, obviously, I was all things Newton, right? You know, I want you to write about a community that's blah, 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 or research this. Okay, I'm going to research Newton. Well, I want you to research another community that's about this. Well, I'm going to research Newton. so I researched Newton. So anyway, when I brought up the stat that said how much percentage of our property evaluations are nonprofit, therefore we get no money through taxation based on that, they told me I was wrong and said, there's no way, the highest I've ever seen is this. And I was like, well, you can go check for yourself. I mean, I appreciate the challenge.
What was that number at the time?
It's like 30%.
Yeah, it's even higher now.
Okay, now this professor, okay, from that I mean, you would know who this professor is if you've taken any of those MPA courses at Wichita State University in the last 20 years. Okay, you'll know who I'm talking about by saying that. But anyway, wonderful professor, and I just said, no, I'm pretty sure I'm correct. And then she went and looked it up and came back and said, yeah, well, you guys have quite the pickle going on there.
And that's not just Newton, that's all Harvey County.
Yeah.
So Newton goes, so goes Harvey County.
That's correct.
I mean, and that sounds callous.
So goes the heart, goes the body.
You know, more than 50% of our population is sitting in Newton for Harvey County. The number at Harvey County is something to the tune of 33.5. You know, and that's where Newton's at. We're both there. And I know where that's coming from, and I know what's driving it. You know, I don't know if I want to rip that wound clean open, but I mean, straight up.
But you got to have one or the other. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying what we are doing is wrong. I'm not anti 30% nonprofits being here. I'm not pay your fair share. Don't misjudge my heart attitude, folks.
Well,
I just want to clarify.
Here's where I am.
It's nowhere your frustration lies.
Right. Here's where I am on the nonprofits that are not paying property tax. We need to evaluate what it is they are what they are building and not paying that tax on. Okay? And I am very much in Randy Haig's camp on this one. And for those who haven't been paying attention, he's chair of the Harvey County Commission. And I am absolutely in his camp.
Fantastic job.
Yeah. This is where he's at. Okay? We don't want to put property tax on the nursing home itself. But all those houses that they're building, and I'm looking at you, North Newton, all those houses that they're building that should be evaluated in the $300,000 range, and then they're selling them, quote, selling them, and those are not taxed because it's being done by the nursing home organization. I got a serious problem with that.
Churches are doing that now,
and yes, and it's the same problem that I have with a number of the housing developments that occurred south on the south side of Newton, back, I'm talking west of Walmart. Okay, same problem. Here's the problem: if you can afford to build a $200,000 or $300,000 house, if you can afford to build that, you can afford a couple grand for a sidewalk now, can't you?
I would think so.
And you know, I've had real estate agents look at me and say, well, I could see that on one side of the street. No. No. Both sides. The section of town I live in, there's sidewalk on both sides of the street. And those houses weren't $200,000 when they were built.
No.
Okay.
But,
My
see,
neighborhood,
yeah, people walked a lot
within the
more.
last 10 years, my neighborhood, there's been houses built for less than $100,000. Those houses were required to put in new sidewalks. Didn't matter if there was one across the street. If you can afford to build a $200,000 or $300,000 home, don't tell me you can't afford property tax. I'm not going to believe you. And there's honestly no good reason for those to not be taxed. Okay? If you're taxing everybody else on their property, you're taxing every other house in the town, why not that one?
But you're getting into some sticky ickies here, because a church can go and buy a lot of property around themselves. I know in Wichita there's some different churches. A Catholic church does it, I know. They buy a bigger portion of land, they build a church on it, and they build all these houses around it, but it's all on church property. So you're buying and selling. All this buying and selling is taking place, and people are living there and residing, but because ultimately it's the property of the church, then they evade taxes. And it's not evade. I didn't say evade. I didn't say that's the wrong word.
You know,
then
here's the thing, Lance.
They don't pay taxes on their property because they are a nonprofit religious entity. But that goes for any of them, and we have a lot of them here.
Well, and again, it goes to the point of the property. I mean, straight up. You know, if so, the church that I attend to, 15 years ago, they bought a house and they bought it and they tore it down. They were dealing with some parking issues and walkway issues between parking and yada, 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 yada. They bought the house. They tore it down. At no time during that process did anyone from our church discuss whether or not they thought they needed some kind of a property tax exemption for that. And they honestly didn't care. Okay? It's about the purpose.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm okay. Don't tax the church building. That's fine. Seriously. It's the same as the nursing home. Don't tax the nursing home.
If you're building these multi-million-dollar housing developments,
and then quote unquote selling them.
Oh, well, that's okay too.
Why are you doing that? For profit.
Yes.
That is not the action of a nonprofit organization.
But
it is being done for profit.
If all that money goes back into a bank account for a nonprofit, technically it's just a donation back to the
If you're really truly selling it, then when you're done, you no longer own it.
No.
And now here we are with all of these properties. We're up around, well over 30%. We've got tons of property throughout this county and throughout our city that supposedly isn't even, because they're using the term sale. Now do they own it or don't they?
Well, it's a transfer of ownership.
Again, who owns it?
The church. No.
Then why are you charging?
It's a transfer of occupancy.
Okay, it's a transfer of occupancy. It's not a sale. It's a rent.
That's right. Yes.
It's not a sale. It's a rental.
Yeah.
Can we start calling things what they are? And there's organizations right here at home that I'm going, come on, seriously? Because at the end of the day, what has somebody accrued? What do they get when they have to move out of there and move into the nursing home?
Nothing. I don't know how that works. I can't speak
And what
to that.
happens to the house?
It gets sold back to somebody.
It gets resold.
Yes. And they just keep doing that over and over and over again for the existence of the home, basically.
Exactly.
But this is uncharted territory as well.
This is nuts. It's just absolutely nuts what's going on. It's insane. Okay?
Chad, you're just mad because you didn't think of it first. I'm just messing with you.
Well, I've seriously considered, because I am.
We're going to start a church, Chad.
Because I'm twice
Church of Harvey County Talk.
I'm ordained by two different churches.
You will be the first minister.
So it's like, can I turn my house into a church?
Yes.
Because, but
that's the answer to the question.
And I don't feel right about that. I just don't.
Not much different than people going to start a small business so they can just take that and run all of these other things under that umbrella with a failing company. good. I mean, it's that's for another day.
Long story short, yes,
we
for
need
another
a tax.
day.
We need a tax representative to come on here and explain taxes to us.
We absolutely need to clean up these nonprofit organizations, and we have to figure out a way where we can actually accurately define what is going on, and there's got to be some places, there has to be, that some taxes need to get paid, because that percentage is way too high. Way too high. You've heard me say on this program before, if you want your mill levy to go down, this is where we need to go to make that happen. Yeah. At the time, I was talking about we need new residential housing, because that gets onto the tax rolls. We're being undermined by residential housing being put on the that are not being put on the tax rolls under the guise of them being owned by a nonprofit organization.
And I would say,
period,
if I was a nonprofit organization and I wanted to target an area to see whether or not my chances of being able to come and place my nonprofit here, or have my nonprofit benefit through housing or education or whatever it is that my nonprofit is geared towards. I mean, Newton is a friendly place for that. And I'm not going after anybody for these people. We're going to probably make a lot of people mad doing this.
Well, I know we are.
I mean, I'm not anti any of this. We're just trying to. I mean, everybody who's listening saw us walk through this path.
Right.
This started with.
But I want to make something really, really clear. I want to make something super, super clear. Because there are going to be people who administrate nonprofits that are going to see this and they're going to go, good Lord, what are you talking about, Chad? Yeah. And there's a bunch of you I'm not talking about.
Oh, no.
Because there's a ton of you that own nothing and you're renting everything. And doggone it, because you're renting, you are paying property tax.
Yeah, and please don't personalize this, folks, because this is not what I know. Right. Chad's hard, and we are not here to bash nonprofit organizations.
We absolutely
it's that we have 33 or over 30%, which is very high.
It's ridiculously high.
And then not only that, I mean, I was going to say that the silver lining to this is we have a lot of industry building right now.
Yes, we do.
And so it's very important. But we also have to realize that we are a community that has stood out. We, as a community, have made the decision that we are going to support nonprofits, that this is a good place to call home, yes, and that our community is very giving. So there's so many things that are beneficial. That's why I don't want anybody to think that
I'll defend the homeless shelter until I die.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, agreed. See, so that's not,
that's something that should not be on the tax rolls. Period. It should not be there. But there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that there is stuff on the tax rolls under the guise of being nonprofits that they need to be taxed. Period. There's just no two ways around it.